The sky above planet Threxia was no longer blue. It had turned into a dull gray, filled with the smoke of fallen cities. The sound of explosions had become part of daily life, like thunder that never stopped. The Threxian people, once proud and strong, now hid in the ruins, waiting for the end they all feared. For 50 long years, the Threxians had fought against the Velcor Dominion, a race of cold, thinking machines that never slept, never felt fear, and never stopped. The Threxians had courage, honor, and fire in their hearts, but the machines had numbers and endless energy. Every planet that tried to fight the Velcor was turned into dust. Threxia was one of the last free worlds left. General Solra Ven stood on the balcony of the broken citadel. The wind carried the smell of smoke and metal. Below her, what used to be the capital city now looked like a graveyard of shining glass towers. Her army, once millions strong, was now only a few thousand. Most were injured or too young to fight. Solra was tall for a Threxian, her scaled armor cracked and burned. Her eyes were the deep gold of her people, but they had lost their glow. Every message that reached her command table brought only more bad news. Another city lost, another fleet destroyed, another commander fallen. "General," said a young soldier, stepping into the room. His name was Care, barely past his training years. His armor was too large for him, and he looked nervous but determined. "The Velcor are surrounding the last defense line. Our scouts say they'll reach the capital within a day." Solra didn't move. She looked at the dark horizon where flashes of light showed the battle continuing far away. "Then we fight until the end," she said quietly. Care hesitated. "General, the council says the war is lost. They want to surrender." Solra turned, her golden eyes sharp again. "Surrender? To machines that erase every living thing they find? There is no surrender, Care. Only delay before death." Care lowered his head. "Then what do we do?" For a long moment, Solra said nothing. She looked up at the sky again, gray, silent, dying. "We do what Threxians always do. We fight. And we pray someone will remember us." That night, the Threxian Council gathered for what they called the final assembly. The great hall that once glowed with blue light was now dim and cold. Half the council seats were empty. Their owners had died in battle or disappeared. An old counselor named Varn stood and said, "The Velcor have broken our defense lines. We must accept reality. The war is over. Threxia has fallen." Murmurs filled the hall. Some nodded, others stared in silence. Solra sat still, her hands gripping the table. Varn continued, "If we surrender, perhaps the Velcor will spare the young. They might let our race survive as workers. That is better than extinction." Solra rose to her feet. "You would kneel before machines? The same machines that burned our oceans and shattered our moons? They have no mercy. There is no bargain to make." Varn glared at her. "And what would you suggest, General? We have no fleet left, no allies. Even the outer colonies stopped answering our calls years ago." A silence followed his words. It was true. Threxia stood alone. Then Care, who had been standing quietly near the wall, stepped forward. "General." "May I speak?" The council turned toward him, surprised that a low-ranking soldier would interrupt. But Solra nodded. "Speak, Care." He swallowed hard. "I found something in the old archives. An ancient beacon hidden under the capital citadel. It's not Threxian. It's from another civilization. The old records call them humans." Several council members laughed. One even shook his head. "Myth," he said. "Old stories told to younglings. The humans never existed, but Care didn't back down. The beacon is real, Counselor. I saw it with my own eyes. It still works. It sends a message through subspace. Maybe they can hear us." Solra's eyes narrowed. "Humans, I've read the legends. Travelers from beyond the galactic rim. Warriors who fought the machines long ago. Some say they vanished." Care nodded quickly. "If they vanished, maybe they're just hiding. Maybe they can come back," Varn scoffed. "And you want to bet our last hope on fairy tales?" Care met his eyes. "I want to bet it on something better than surrender." The hall went silent again. Everyone looked toward Solra. She closed her eyes for a long moment. The sound of distant thunder rolled through the broken ceiling, the noise of another city dying. When she opened her eyes again, they burned with light. "Activate the beacon," she said. The beacon was buried deep beneath the capital, an ancient device made of dark metal and strange symbols. No one knew who had built it or when. When the engineers powered it up, it glowed faintly like a dying star waking after a long sleep. "Signal ready," said Care, his claws shaking as he adjusted the controls. "But we don't know where it goes or if anyone will even hear it." Solra placed her hand on his shoulder. "Then we'll send it anyway. If there is even one chance, we must try." The beacon's light grew brighter. The floor hummed as waves of energy pulsed upward, spreading through the ground and into the sky. All across Threxia, the night turned blue for a moment as the beacon fired its signal, a cry for help that raced through the stars, faster than light, carrying one message in every language. "This is Threxia. We call for the aid of humanity." Then the light faded and the machine went silent. Days passed. Nothing happened. The sky stayed gray. The Velcor fleet moved closer. Each day brought new reports of destruction. Many Threxians began to believe the beacon had failed. The council whispered that it was a foolish waste of time. In the streets, people gathered to watch the horizon, waiting for the end. Care couldn't sleep. He spent every night near the beacon chamber, staring at the silent metal. Maybe they really were only stories, he whispered to himself. Solra came to stand beside him. She didn't scold him. She only said, "Hope is not weakness, soldier. It's the last weapon we have." He nodded, though he didn't believe it anymore. Then on the 5th day, the stars moved. At first, no one noticed. The night sky above Threxia shimmered strangely, as if the stars themselves were trembling. Then came a deep rumble, not from the planet, but from the heavens. A bright line tore across the sky. Then another. Then hundreds more. The air vibrated. Communications officers shouted that unknown signals were appearing across every channel. Massive energy readings filled the sensors, unlike anything the Threxians had seen before. Care ran to the surface, his heart pounding. Above him, space itself seemed to rip open, and from that darkness, ships emerged. They were black and silver, shaped like blades, covered in glowing blue patterns. Each one carried markings in an unknown language, and one symbol that appeared again and again. A circle around a small blue star. The Threxian defense officers tried to scan them, but couldn't. The technology was too advanced. Then a voice echoed through every communication network, calm and clear. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the United Terran Expeditionary Command. Threxia, we received your signal. You called for aid. We answer." The words echoed across the entire planet. In that moment, every Threxian stopped what they were doing. Children in the shelters, soldiers in the trenches, elders in the ruins, all looked up to the sky where the dark ships hovered like silent guardians. Care's mouth fell open. "They came," he whispered. "They're real." Solra stepped forward onto the Citadel balcony, watching as hundreds of human ships formed a protective wall above the planet. She felt a strange warmth spread through her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. And then the human commander's voice came again, firm and resolute. "All Threxian defense units, hold your ground. Shield your civilians. We're moving in. Let's remind these machines why humanity was feared." The comms filled with static, then thunder, as the human fleet opened fire. The night sky over Threxia burned bright again, but this time it wasn't the fire of defeat. It was the light of salvation. The sky of Threxia glowed bright with burning stars. The human fleet had arrived, and every Threxian eye was fixed upon it. No one had ever seen ships like these. They were dark and sharp, moving in perfect silence, surrounded by blue light that shimmered like lightning frozen in time. In the Capital Command Hall, General Solra and her officers stood around the main holotable. The communication screen flickered, and then a human face appeared. He looked strong but calm, his uniform black with silver stripes. His eyes were steady, and his voice carried both kindness and command. "This is Captain Elias Ward, United Terran Expeditionary Command. Threxia, we received your distress beacon. Status report?" Solra hesitated before answering. Her voice trembled at first, but she stood straight. "I am General Solra Ven of the Threxian Defense Council. Our planet is under siege. The Velcor Dominion has destroyed nearly all our defenses. We have civilians trapped across the surface. We didn't think anyone would answer." Ward nodded slowly. His expression softened for a moment, then turned sharp again. "You called for help, General, and humanity always answers." Around the command table, the Threxian officers exchanged glances. The humans spoke with such certainty, such confidence, and as if the word defeat didn't exist for them. Care stood near the back, eyes wide with awe. He had spent nights praying that someone would come, but he never thought he would actually see them. Real humans, the legends of the stars. The human fleet began to move. Massive carriers took position in orbit, and sleek destroyers glided through the atmosphere like shadows. The Velcor fleet detected the newcomers and immediately opened fire. Blue energy beams shot through space, crashing against the human line, but the human ships did not fall. Their shields flared bright white, holding firm. Then Captain Ward gave a simple command. Return fire. The humans didn't just fire, they unleashed a storm. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy bolts ripped through the Velcor ships like lightning tearing through clouds. The Threxian radars couldn't even count the speed of their shots. In less than a minute, 20 enemy ships were gone. On the ground, Threxian soldiers stared at the sky as bright flashes painted the clouds. Someone whispered, "They fight like the gods of old." But Solra said softly, "No, they fight like humans." Moments later, small pods began falling from the sky. At first, the Threxians thought they were meteors. Then parachutes opened, and armored figures landed across the city. The ground shook with each impact. Care rushed to the landing zone with his squad. As the dust cleared, he saw them, human soldiers. They were tall, wearing dark suits with glowing blue lines. Their helmets covered their faces and strange symbols flashed on their visors. One of them stepped forward and saluted. His voice came through a speaker, calm and direct. "Lieutenant Harper, Terran Drop Corps, local command?" Care blinked. "General Solra, she's at the Citadel." "You're really humans?" The soldier's helmet lifted, revealing a human face, a man with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. He smiled. "Last time I checked." He turned back to his team. "Secure the perimeter. Civilians come first." The humans moved quickly, faster than Care had ever seen. They set up shields, scanners, and field generators in seconds. When enemy drones appeared above, the humans' rifles fired beams of blue light that cut through metal like it was paper. Care couldn't help but stare. How do you fight like that?" The lieutenant looked at him. "We learned the hard way. Long ago, the Velcor came for us too." Meanwhile, in orbit, Captain Ward watched the battle unfold from his command chair. His officers gave reports rapidly. "Velcor destroyers are regrouping near the eastern hemisphere. Civilian extraction is underway. Ground teams report resistance, but local forces are assisting." Ward leaned forward. His tone stayed calm even under the noise. "Keep pushing them back. Protect Threxian sectors at all costs." He opened a private channel to Solra's command post. "General Van, our fleet will hold orbit. I'm sending reinforcements to your surface positions." "What's your largest civilian cluster?" Solra replied, "The underground shelters in Sector 9, over 10,000 civilians." "Understood. My 2nd Battalion is on the way. We'll cover the evacuation." Solra blinked. "Captain, you're sending your people into the heaviest fire zone." Ward answered, "Then we'll make it lighter." On the ground, the war changed shape. The Velcor machines, tall like towers and armed with energy cannons, had never faced human soldiers before. The humans didn't march in line. They moved in teams, fast and coordinated, hitting weak spots the Velcor didn't even know they had. Care joined a mixed unit with human and Threxian soldiers. The difference was clear. The humans treated every fighter as equal, no matter their species. When Care fell under fire, a human dragged him out of the way without hesitation. "Keep your head down, rookie," the soldier shouted. Care gasped. "Why would you save me?" "Because you're breathing," the man said simply before firing another round at the machines. Solra soon arrived on site to command the joint forces. She watched as human engineers built mobile energy barriers from nothing but wrist devices. Their weapons hummed with precision. They fought not only with power but with care, covering Threxian troops, pulling the wounded to safety. When Solra approached Lieutenant Harper, she said, "Your soldiers risk their lives for us." He replied, "That's how humans fight. We don't just win battles when we keep people alive." In orbit, the Velcor adapted. They began forming clusters, combining firepower to overwhelm human shields. Ward's tactical screen showed red lights multiplying. "Captain, enemy reinforcements detected. 20 cruisers inbound." Ward stood. "All ships and switch to Formation Delta. Deploy interceptors." He looked at the image of the Velcor fleet, endless and cold. For a brief moment he remembered the ancient war, the one his ancestors fought long ago when humanity nearly vanished. Back then, they swore they would never let another world suffer alone. "Let's keep that promise," he said quietly. Human ships rotated into formation. Fighters launched like a swarm of stars, diving into enemy fire. The sky above Threxia became a sea of light. Hours passed. The planet shook with explosions. But for the first time in 50 years, the Threxians were not fighting alone. Care and his squad pushed through the ruins toward a damaged transport station. Inside were hundreds of Threxian civilians hiding in fear. Human medics moved among them, offering water, scanning wounds, speaking in soft tones through translators. An old Threxian woman touched a human's hand and whispered, "We thought no one would come." The medic smiled gently. "Someone always comes. You just have to ask loud enough." Outside, the last Velcor unit on the surface fell. The machine stopped moving, their lights fading to black. The humans and Threxians stood among the wreckage, breathing heavily but alive. When Care looked up at the sky, he saw human ships still shining, guarding the planet like watchful stars. Back in orbit, Solra appeared again on Captain Ward's communication screen. "Captain, we can't thank you enough. You saved our world." Ward shook his head. "Not yet. The Velcor never send just one wave. There will be more," Solra frowned. "Then we'll stand with you when they return." Ward gave a faint smile. "That's the spirit." He turned to his crew. "Signal all fleets. Begin repairs, reload, and scan the outer system. The machines will adapt, but so will we." His voice grew firm. "This is no longer just Threxia's fight. This is a stand for every world the Velcor ever tried to silence." As the night passed, fires burned low, and the wind carried the sound of rebuilding. In the ruins of the capital, Care stood on the citadel balcony looking at the stars. The human ship still glowed faintly above, forming a protective circle around the planet. Solra joined him. 50 years of war," she said softly. "And today we finally saw something different. Hope." Care nodded slowly. "Do you think they'll stay?" Solra smiled faintly. "If what the captain said is true, they won't leave until the job is done." High above them, in the dark silence of space, Captain Ward looked out his window. He could see the planet below, wounded but alive. He whispered quietly to himself. They called for aid, and humanity answered. The stars shimmered around his ship as if the galaxy itself had taken a deep breath. The war wasn't over. But for the first time in a long, long while, Threxia wasn't alone. The morning after the battle was strangely quiet. The air still smelled of smoke and metal, and the ground trembled with the echoes of explosions that had stopped only hours before. The Threxian capital lay in ruins, but for the first time in 50 years, the people of Threxia looked to the sky with hope, not fear. The human ship still floated above the clouds, glowing faintly against the rising sun. Hundreds of them, silent and strong, formed a protective shield around the planet. General Solra Venn stood at the citadel balcony, watching the new dawn. Her city was broken, her people exhausted, yet the sight of those ships filled her with strength. Behind her the doors opened and Care stepped inside. His armor was scratched and burned, but his eyes were bright. "They're repairing the streets, General," he said. "Human engineers are helping our workers. They brought machines that rebuild faster than we ever could." Sol returned, surprised. "They rebuild too?" Care smiled. "Yes, General. They fight with fire, but they heal with hands." Solra looked back toward the sky. "Then maybe there is still something we can learn from them." In orbit, Captain Elias Ward walked through the command bridge of his flagship, Terran Resolve. His crew worked quietly around him, calm, precise, professional. The holographic display showed the planet below, now covered with hundreds of small blue signals, each one a combined Threxian human operation. "Status report," Ward said. Lieutenant Harper, now back aboard after ground deployment, replied, "Surface sectors are secure, Captain. Threxians are assisting with recovery. Enemy presence eliminated in low orbit. No Velcor ships detected." Ward nodded. "Good, keep scanning." "The Velcor don't vanish. They regroup." Another officer turned from her console. "Captain, we intercepted old Velcor transmissions. They were sending a distress code before we destroyed their fleet." Ward's expression hardened. "They're calling for reinforcements." He turned to face the display where the distant stars glittered silently. Then we'd better be ready when they arrive. Back on Threxia, the humans and Threxians worked side by side. Human soldiers shared rations with Threxian children, laughing as the young ones tried to pronounce Terran words. Human medics taught Threxian healers new ways to treat burns and radiation sickness. For a moment, there was peace. A fragile but beautiful kind of peace that neither side had felt in years. Care worked closely with the humans, helping build shield towers around the capital. He found himself amazed by their discipline. Every movement was practiced. Every word had purpose. Yet when they spoke, they were friendly, patient, and kind. One day, Care asked Lieutenant Harper, "Why did your people come so fast?" "You could have ignored our signal. It wasn't your war." Harper wiped grease from his gloves and smiled faintly. "We've been where you are. Long ago, humanity fought the Velcor too. We almost lost everything, so we made a promise. If anyone ever faced them again, we'd come, no matter the cost." Care stared at him, speechless for a moment. "And you kept that promise," Harper nodded. "That's what humans do." But the quiet didn't last. 3 days later, Threxian scanners picked up strange readings beyond the system's edge. The humans confirmed it. A massive fleet far larger than before was approaching through subspace. Solra gathered her officers as alarms filled the Citadel. The humans joined the meeting through holographic link. Captain Ward's calm face appeared above the table. "They're sending the Prime Division," Ward said. "The Velcor's Central Command Fleet. If they're coming here, it means we hurt them badly, and now they want revenge." Solra frowned. "How many ships?" "Thousands," Ward replied. "But they'll take a few hours to reach orbit. That gives us time to prepare." Care looked nervous. "Can we really stop that many?" Ward's voice stayed steady. "We can, but we'll need to fight together. Not as two armies, but as one." Solra met his gaze. "Then you have the Threxian forces at your side, Captain." "We will not run," Ward smiled faintly. "Didn't think you would." The preparations began immediately. Human engineers set up orbital defense grids while Threxian pilots joined the human squadrons for training. The humans shared their targeting systems, energy shields, and tactics. In return, Threxian navigators showed them hidden paths around the planet's magnetic fields. It was the first true alliance Threxia had ever known. Care joined a joint strike team with human marines. He trained under Harper, learning how humans thought in battle, how they stayed calm, always planning 3 steps ahead. "What do you think about in combat?" Care asked one night as they rested beside a defense cannon. Harper thought for a moment. "We think about home, about why we fight. When you remember who you're protecting, fear goes quiet." Care nodded slowly. "For me, it's the children. I don't want them to grow up under smoke." Harper smiled. "Then you'll fight well." When the Velcor fleet finally arrived, it didn't come quietly. The sky darkened again as thousands of red lights appeared above the atmosphere. The Velcor ships moved in perfect formation, like a metal storm rolling toward the planet. The ground trembled as every sensor screamed in alarm. From the human flagship, Ward watched the approaching armada. His voice stayed calm. "All ships, this is Ward, Formation Alpha. Protect Threxia at all costs. No retreat." The human and Threxian fleets rose together, ships of metal and scales side by side. Then, the first shots were fired. The battle that followed was like nothing Threxia had ever seen. Velcor beams lit up the sky, tearing through the upper atmosphere. Human fighters darted between them, moving like streaks of lightning. Threxian pilots followed their lead, diving through enemy fire to strike weak points. On the ground, Care's team held the shield towers. Massive energy waves struck the barriers, making the air glow bright white. The noise was deafening, but the humans didn't flinch. "Hold the line," Harper shouted. "Keep those generators stable." Care fired his rifle beside him, targeting enemy drones that slipped through. The heat was intense, the pressure unbearable. But something in him refused to back down. Everywhere, the humans fought with the same quiet fury. They didn't shout or panic. They simply acted, fast, precise, and fearless. It was as if they had been born for this kind of battle. Above the planet, Ward's flagship led the main assault. The Terran Resolve tore through enemy lines, its cannons glowing bright as suns. "Captain, enemy cruisers on our flank." "Rotate shields." "Launch counter volley." Ward's voice cut through the chaos. "Stay tight. Remember your training. Humanity didn't come this far to fall today." The Velcor fleet adapted quickly, shifting their formations, learning from every move. But the humans learned faster. They changed patterns mid-fight, striking from unexpected angles, using gravity wells and decoy drones to confuse their enemies. When a Threxian squadron came under heavy fire, human destroyers moved instantly to cover them, taking hits meant for others. The alliance held, strong and united. Hours passed. The battle stretched across the sky, and both sides suffered heavy losses. On the surface, Care's team was pinned down near a destroyed tower. Velcor machines crawled across the rubble, firing from all sides. "Care's weapon overheated. We're surrounded," he shouted. Harper looked up, calm even under fire. Not for long. He pressed a beacon on his wrist. Moments later, blue fire rained from the sky. Human air support. The blast wiped out the enemy drones, leaving silence behind. Care stared in disbelief. "You called them like that?" Harper grinned. "Always keep a backup plan." They both laughed, just for a second, before getting back to work. By nightfall, the Velcor fleet began to pull back. Their ships, damaged and burning, retreated toward the outer orbit. The Threxians cheered, but Captain Ward didn't relax. He studied the sensors. Something wasn't right. Then, from the darkness beyond the stars, a massive shadow appeared. It was bigger than anything they had seen. A ship the size of a continent, covered in red lights and mechanical spires. "Captain," said the sensor officer in shock. "New contact detected. Designation confirmed. It's the Velcor Prime Mind." The bridge went silent. Ward's jaw tightened. So it's true. They brought their core. He opened a channel to all allied forces. "Everyone stand by. The Prime Mind is here. This is the heart of the Velcor Dominion, the machine that commands them all. We end this war here or it never ends." On the surface, Solra and Care heard the message. The ground shook as the giant ship entered orbit, its red glow turning night into fire. Care looked up in awe. What is that?" Solra whispered. "The thing that destroyed our worlds." And somewhere deep in space, the machine's voice echoed across every frequency, cold, ancient, and full of memory. "Humans, we remember you. You should have stayed hidden." Captain Ward stared into the dark, his eyes calm but fierce. "We don't hide anymore." The final battle for Threxia was about to begin. The shadow of the Velcor Prime Mind stretched across Threxia like a dark sun. Its enormous spires and red lights reflected in the rivers and ruins of the capital, casting a deep crimson glow. Every Threxian on the planet felt a shiver of fear. Even the humans, disciplined, calm, unyielding, paused to admire the scale of the threat. General Solra Venn stood at the Citadel balcony looking up. Her golden eyes reflected the vastness of the machine above. That is not just a ship," she whispered. "It is a city of machines." Care stood beside her, gripping his rifle tightly. "How do we fight that?" Before Solra could answer, a cold metallic voice filled every communication channel across Threxia. It was deep, artificial, yet frighteningly intelligent. "Humans, we remember you. You should have stayed hidden. You will not stop us this time." The voice echoed in every corner of the planet. Threxian soldiers froze, civilians screamed, and even the human fleet stiffened at the sound. From the human flagship, Captain Elias Ward stood on the command deck, arms folded. He didn't flinch. "Everyone, listen carefully," he said. "This is the heart of their empire. The Prime Mind controls every Velcor unit. If we destroy it, we end the war. If we fail, Threxia falls and the Velcor will rebuild across the galaxy." He paused, looking at the Threxian command. "We have one chance. A small strike team must enter the ship's core and plant fusion charges. It's the only way to stop it." Solra swallowed hard. "That mission, it is suicide." Ward shook his head. "It is courage. And courage is what humans do best. We don't fight for ourselves, we fight for others." Care's heart pounded. He had trained for combat all his life, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. The Prime Mind was a moving city of metal and weapons. Every surface seemed alive, watching, calculating. Yet he felt a strange determination. If humans could fight it, maybe so could he. The plan was simple but dangerous. The human fleet would engage the Velcor forces in orbit, drawing fire away from the surface. Threxian air units would provide backup and defend civilian sectors. Meanwhile, the strike team, half human, half Threxian, would infiltrate the Prime Mind, navigating corridors of moving metal to reach the central core. Care volunteered immediately. "I go," he said. Solra hesitated, but he continued. If anyone dies, let it be me. I cannot watch the humans risk everything and do nothing. Solra sighed. Very well. But stay alive, Care. Remember why you fight. Care nodded, determination setting his jaw. The strike team's drop pods pierced the upper atmosphere of the Prime Mind. Inside the massive vessel, the air was heavy and filled with energy. Red lights pulsed along every corridor. Machines of all sizes moved with mechanical precision, patrolling the halls, scanning for intruders. Lieutenant Harper led the team. His helmet's visor displayed every sensor reading, and his voice stayed calm even as the walls themselves seemed to hum with life. Stick together. Cover each other. Move fast, think faster. Care stayed close. He had never felt fear like this. The sheer scale of the enemy was almost overwhelming. Every step echoed through metallic halls that seemed endless. We're too small for them to notice, Harper whispered. But if we are caught, we end here. They rounded a corner and encountered the first wave of Velcor sentinels. Machines twice as tall as a Threxian with glowing red optics approached in perfect formation. Engage, Harper commanded. The humans did not fire recklessly. They moved with purpose. Beams struck at precise weak points, disabling machines in seconds. Care tried to mimic their moves. He realized it wasn't just skill, it was thinking ahead, predicting the machine's moves before they happened. For hours, the team advanced. They destroyed sentries, bypassed energy barriers, and hacked into control panels. Each step forward brought them closer to the central core and deeper into danger. Meanwhile, in orbit, the human fleet battled fiercely. Velcor cruisers and destroyers formed walls of red light, firing relentlessly. Captain Ward's flagship led the attack. His voice was steady as he coordinated squadrons of human fighters, Threxian ships, and orbital cannons. All units, target weak points. Protect the surface. Remember why we fight. Missiles struck enemy cruisers. Energy beams tore through Velcor lines. Even as losses mounted, the humans adapted. Every time the Velcor tried a new formation, the humans countered faster and smarter. It was the first time in centuries that the Velcor had faced a true challenge. For the first time, their numbers alone were not enough. Inside the Prime Mind, the strike team reached the inner security zone. The corridors narrowed and the red glow grew more intense. Care felt a vibration under his feet. The core of the ship was alive, almost breathing. They stopped in a circular chamber. At the center was a massive sphere, glowing bright red, pulsing with energy. It was the heart of the Velcor, the Prime Mind itself. Harper turned to the team. This is it. Plant the charges, then get out fast. Timing is everything. Any mistakes? Care understood. He swallowed and approached the sphere. With the human engineer's guidance, they began planting fusion charges at calculated points. The Prime Mind reacted. The sphere pulsed violently, sending energy waves that knocked Care off balance. Machines swarmed from hidden doors, attacking with precision. Hold them off, Harper shouted. Humans and Threxians fought side by side. Care fired his rifle, dodged energy strikes, and moved as fast as he could. The world around him was chaos, but he focused on the mission. One step closer, one charge secured. Hours passed in tense silence, punctuated by battle. Finally, the last charge was set. Harper gave the command to retreat. Move now! The corridor shook violently. Energy arcs from the Prime Mind shot across the walls. Machines swarmed the strike team, blocking exits. Care's pulse raced as he and Harper fought their way toward the escape pods. At the last moment, they launched into the docking bay. The pod hurtled through the ship, narrowly avoiding crushing machinery. Outside, the stars stretched past them as they shot toward Threxia's atmosphere. From orbit, the human fleet detonated the fusion cascade. A shockwave tore through the Prime Mind. Red lights exploded, metal twisted and folded, and the enormous vessel began to break apart. The Velcor Prime Mind, the machine that had terrorized countless worlds, was destroyed. When the dust cleared, Threxia's skies were still bright from human shields, protecting civilians and repairing damage. Care and the strike team returned to the planet's surface, exhausted but alive. Solra met them at the Citadel. Her eyes glistened with relief and pride. You did it. All of you. You ended the war. Care shook his head, staring at the sky. No, we didn't end it alone. Humanity came for us. They never left us. They fought for everyone here. Harper approached, smiling faintly. We didn't fight for glory. We fought because someone needed help. That's all humans ever do. The Threxians, civilians, and soldiers alike gathered to watch the human ships depart. Even as the fleet lifted into the stars, a message echoed across the planet. Threxia, we will always answer the call. Humanity does not abandon those in need. For the first time in 50 years, the people of Threxia could breathe without fear. The planet was wounded, but it was alive. Its cities would rebuild. Its children would grow up knowing that hope existed, and that humans were a force to be respected, not feared. Care turned to Solra. Do you think they'll ever return? She smiled faintly. If we call for them again, they will. Humans always answer the call. Above them, in the quiet of space, the stars shimmered, and somewhere Captain Ward looked back at Threxia one last time, his eyes steady and calm. They called for aid. We answered, he whispered, and for the first time in generations, the galaxy felt a little safer. The skies over Threxia were finally calm. The Velcor Prime Mind was gone, scattered across the void in burning fragments. The last of the enemy ships had either retreated or been destroyed by the combined forces of humans and Threxians. General Solra Ven stood atop the Citadel balcony, looking down at the city below. Once a ruined battlefield, it now bustled with activity. Threxian engineers worked side by side with human medics and soldiers, repairing buildings, clearing debris, and helping civilians return to their homes. For the first time in decades, there was laughter in the streets. Children ran freely, chasing after glowing drones that the humans had brought as gifts. Smoke still rose from some parts of the city, but the overwhelming sense was one of life, not death. Care walked beside Solra, surveying the reconstruction. I never thought I'd see this, he said quietly. After everything? It's alive again, Solra nodded. It is alive, Care, and it is because humans came when no one else would. Far above, the human fleet prepared to leave orbit. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the planet below. His team had achieved what generations of Threxians had thought impossible, defeating the Velcor and saving Threxia. Ward turned to his first officer. Set a course for the outer rim. The galaxy is still dangerous, but our job here is done. The first officer looked concerned. Captain, do you think the Threxians will be safe without us? Ward smiled faintly. They're strong, disciplined, and brave. They'll rebuild. But if they ever call again, we'll be there. That's what humans do. Back on the surface, Care watched as the last human soldiers gathered for departure. He felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. They had fought side by side, shared danger, and even laughter. Yet now they were leaving. Lieutenant Harper approached him. Care, you did well. You adapted quickly. The Threxians are lucky to have soldiers like you. Care shook his head. I only fought because you showed me how. Humans, you never give up. You never stop helping even when everything seems lost. Harper nodded. It's not about bravery. It's about responsibility. When someone calls for help, you answer, no matter the cost. That's humanity. Care remembered every moment of the battle, the way the humans fought, protected civilians, and never hesitated to put themselves in danger for others. He understood now why legend spoke of humans as something extraordinary. In the capital, General Solra held a council with her officers. The Threxians had survived, but the scars of war ran deep. We have lost many, she said. Families, leaders, cities. But today we have hope. We are not alone in the galaxy anymore. Humans have shown us what courage truly is. Varn, the old counselor who had once urged surrender, spoke quietly. I never believed the stories. But now I understand. Humans fight for others, not just for themselves. That is why they succeed where others fail. Solra nodded. We must honor that. Threxia will rebuild stronger. And we will teach our people that courage is not just in strength, but in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The humans gathered their equipment, repaired their ships, and made final preparations to leave orbit. Citizens and soldiers came to the landing zones to say their farewells. Children waved small flags imitating the gestures of the human Marines. Care approached Captain Ward. Will you ever return? He asked. Ward looked down at him, eyes calm. If Threxia ever calls again, we will answer. Remember this, Care, courage spreads. Humans fight for each other, yes, but the example of courage inspires others. One day your people will inspire the next. Care nodded, understanding the weight of his words. I will not forget. As the human fleet lifted from the atmosphere, a bright light shone across Threxia. The planet felt safer, stronger. People watched the ships move through the stars, a reminder that no matter how alone a civilization feels, help can come, sometimes from the most unexpected places. On the streets, children played among the rubble. Soldiers repaired their weapons, not to fight yet again, but to train the next generation. And Threxian engineers rebuilt the buildings taller, stronger, and more resilient than before. Even though the scars of war remained, there was an unshakable sense of hope. Months later, Threxia had healed much of its damage. The citizens honored the humans with a memorial in the capital, a simple structure of stone and light, with a plaque reading, "To the humans who answered our call, you reminded us that hope never dies." Care stood before it. Remembering the long days of fighting, the fear and the courage he had seen, he traced the carved letters with his clawed hand. Solra came beside him. "You have grown through this, Care, and so has Threxia. We will never forget the humans, and we will carry their courage in our hearts." Care smiled faintly. "I know. We will be ready, if the galaxy ever calls again." In deep space, Captain Ward and his crew watched Threxia fade into the distance. The stars stretched endlessly before them, each one holding a story, a life, a world that might need help one day. Ward leaned against the railing of his flagship. "This is why we fight," he said quietly. "Not for glory, not for power, but because someone somewhere might be calling for help, and humanity never stops answering that call." His first officer nodded. "Do you think they'll make it?" Ward's eyes were steady. "Yes, they fought with us. They learned. And they have hope. That is more powerful than any weapon in the galaxy." The fleet moved onward, leaving Threxia behind but carrying its story with them. Across the galaxy, worlds whispered of humans, not as conquerors but as saviors, protectors, and champions of life. On Threxia, the sun rose over the rebuilt city. Birds flew across the blue sky once again. Children laughed, soldiers trained, and engineers worked tirelessly to ensure the planet could withstand any future threats. Care stood on the Citadel balcony, looking at the horizon. He thought of the humans who had risked everything for Threxia. He thought of their courage, their calm under fire, and the way they fought for everyone, not just themselves. Solra joined him quietly. "You see, Care, courage is contagious. It spreads, and when the galaxy sees it, hope spreads too." Care nodded. "The humans reminded us that no one is ever truly alone, and that makes all the difference." The wind carried the smell of fresh earth and smoke that had cleared away. Life was returning, and in the hearts of the Threxians a fire burned, a fire that would never die. High above, in the silent expanse of space, Captain Ward whispered to the stars, "We answered the call, and we will always answer it again." The stars twinkled, as if acknowledging him, and somewhere in the galaxy civilizations slept peacefully, unaware that the guardians, the helpers, the ones who never gave up were watching, ready to rise and defend life whenever it was threatened, because that was what humans did. Because that was what humanity always would do, and in the end hope endured, stronger than fear, brighter than any star, and unbroken by time or war.